Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today, I will show you a 2013 psychological drama film called Locke. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Our protagonist is a middle-aged man called Ivan Locke. In the busy nightlife of Birmingham, Locke gets into his BMW and drives for London. Locke works as a construction foreman. From the scene, it is obvious that he has left in such a hurry, and he proceeds to place a few calls to ensure everything goes as planned. His first call is to Gareth, his boss at the construction company. Unfortunately, the call does not go through, so he leaves a message with his secretary telling her to make him call back as it is an urgent affair. Locke calls his son Eddie apologizing for missing the game they had promised to watch together. Eddie is frustrated, but he understands promising to update his father as the game goes on, as hearing it from the radio is not as interesting. Locke asks to speak to his wife Katrina, but she has gone to the market, so he asks his son to ask her to call him back. Locke receives a phone call from his friend and backup colleague Donald. Locke asks Donald to cover for him, and Donald cannot believe that Locke is leaving at such a crucial moment. Locke is expected to supervise a large concrete pour, the largest non-nuclear, non-military concrete pour in European history, the next day. Donald is not conversant with Locke's work being under his supervision, and he freaks out. Locke tells his friend that he has no option and hangs up. Next, Locke speaks to a woman called Bethan. Bethan is a colleague with whom Locke had had an affair 7 months ago. Unfortunately, the woman had become pregnant and was undergoing a premature birth. Bethan complains to Locke about how much pain she is in, and Locke encourages her, saying he would be in London in an hour. Katrina returns Locke's call, informing him that she had gotten his favorite food and worn his lucky t-shirt for the game. Locke explains that he will not join the family for dinner and asks Katrina to go upstairs as he wants to tell her something. Locke explains that a few months ago, while out of town for a business trip, he and his secretary had gotten drunk and engaged in an affair that resulted in pregnancy. Katrina is devastated and she hangs up. The next call comes from Gareth, who is furious after hearing Locke bailed on the £100 million project. Gareth angrily asks Locke if he knows what is at stake and how that could impact the company. To make it worse, he also knows that it's not Katrina who is giving birth, so he cannot understand why Locke would jeopardize everything. He wants Locke to abandon the baby and focus on his work. Locke informs his boss that ever since the affair, he had not treated Bethan right, and he wants to be there for the baby. He explains that he has made a decision and the boss should not expect him to change it. Locke is driving towards London, and we don't get to see any other characters. He drinks some liquor from a can before looking at the mirror and addressing someone. He explains that he is not running away from his responsibilities and threatens to cut the passenger's eyes open and fill the sockets with mud. Locke calls Donald, asking him to start preparing for the meeting the next morning. He also calls Bethan, who is still in pain. She asks Locke whether he loves her, but Locke explains he neither loves nor hates her. The next call is more stressful, as it is from Garth, who says he has spoken with the company's management and they have decided to fire Locke. Contrary to expectations, Locke is relaxed and does not care about his loss. He tells Gareth that he will ensure the meeting goes successfully because that is part of his responsibility. Katrina also calls, crying from the hurt her husband has caused her. Locke states that he loves her and wants to come back to her. However, he will not neglect the child. Here, we learn that Locke's father had abandoned and dumped him in a trash can without even giving him a name. Not wanting to be like his father, Locke is determined to give the baby his last name. Katrina is so distraught she hangs up. Locke calls Donald, who is freaking out since he cannot understand the plans for the construction. Locke encourages him and warns him against making an error, as a little crack could cause the building to collapse and kill hundreds of people. Locke calls home, but the phone is answered by Eddie, who is watching the game with his brother, oblivious to the quarrel between his parents. Eddie tells Locke that Katrina has locked herself in the bathroom and she is not coming out. Locke receives a call from the St. Mary's Hospital's sister Margaret, who is worried about Bethan's condition. She wants Locke to be present during the birth as he is her partner, but Locke denies that, saying he is just the baby's father. Donald calls as he is having problems locating the file with the meeting's presentation. Locke asks him to check in the locker rooms, but he realizes he has the file in his car. Katrina calls back and shouts at Locke, asking him how he could be with other women out there and come back to her. She also recalls that on the day of the affair, he had come home with a massive hickey and dismissed it as a work injury. She does not want to believe Locke when he says he has cheated once in their 15 years long marriage. Donald calls again and Locke tells him to start taking notes as he reads them from the file. In the process, he notes that Donald is acting weird and realizes he is drunk. He reprimands Donald for being intoxicated on such a night, and Donald is angry since he shouldn't be dealing with the meeting in the first place, and then he hangs up. At this point, Locke is so stressed out that he is nearly losing it. He has lost his job, his marriage is in shambles, and Bethan is calling repeatedly asking whether he loves her. Locke speaks to the backseat passenger and we learn he is hallucinating about his dead father. His father chides him saying Locke is like him. Locke vehemently denies this, saying unlike his father, he did not run away from his responsibilities, and that he had a chance of rejecting his father after he sought him out after abandoning him for 23 years, but he didn't. Locke calls Eddie, who gives him updates on the game and asks when he is returning home. Locke is motivated by this and he decides to call the local police authorities, asking for permission to close the roads, so that the 250 trucks delivering the concrete can make it through to the meeting without mishaps. PC Davids, the man he speaks with, explains that he cannot close the roads without a permit from the local council. Locke complains about these instructions, noting that the council offices are closed at the hour. Locke calls Eddie asking him to look through his books for the telephone number of Cassidy, a man working at the council. Donald calls apologizing for his earlier outburst and asks what he should do. Locke tells him to rush to the project site and look for his notebook as it is not at home. Locke receives a call from Halil Galu, the doctor in charge of Bethan's delivery. The Halil is worried since Bethan's condition is getting worse and they have to deliver the baby surgically. However, Bethan refuses, saying she wants to wait for Locke. Locke speaks with Bethan, encouraging her to go ahead with the surgery and promises to be there in time. He says that Bethan has to do what is right for the kid, as waiting for him may cause further complications. Bethan wants Locke to say that he loves her, but he cannot say this as that is not how he feels about her. Locke speaks with Katrina, who is still angry and demands that he come back home. Locke consoles his wife, expressing his love for her and the happiness he has had over the years the two have been married. However, he refuses to abandon the baby, saying he never forgave his father for abandoning her and promises to be home in the morning. Donald locates Cassidy's number and Locke calls Cassidy. The man is angry at being interrupted from a dinner date, but he agrees to give Locke the permit. Locke asks Donald to rush to Cassidy and get the permit. However, Donald admits he is heavily intoxicated and if he is arrested for drunk driving, the meeting is as good as dead. Locke tells Donald to run and get the permit, encouraging him by saying how great it will be if the project is successful. Locke also calls Bethan to encourage her through the painful labor experience. He tells her how the baby is a good thing, as she would not be alone in the world anymore. He also tells her that she deserves to be happy and she should not let him ruin her shot at that. Katrina calls finally in terms with what her husband had done. Locke wants to talk about the issue in the morning. However, she tells him that she wants a divorce and he should not bother coming home. Katrina tells Locke that they will plan a way for him to be meeting up with his kids at opportune times. Katrina also explains that Locke always favored his buildings and his work, never prioritizing her and the family. Donald calls excited that he has managed to get the permit and the meeting will be a huge success. The two laugh weirdly and Locke feels like he has fulfilled his duties. Locke gets a call from his son, who explains the game to him and begs him to come back home. Locke is distraught with emotions as he receives the last phone call of the night. He has reached London when Bethan calls him and he listens to the baby cooing over the phone. In a span of 90 minutes, he made 36 phone calls that changed his life forever. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for such amazing recaps.